I am so pleased to have Franklin Hernandez with us today. Franklin Hernandez, I've been following him online for a while, and what he's doing in his industry is just unparalleled to me. And I just love his content. So without further ado, I'm gonna let Franklin introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself.
Oh boy. All right. So I hope we got about 3 hours. First of all, I'm Cuban. We can just talk to a 2x4 in the wall. And then, but yeah, I'm the host of the Pest Geek podcast. It's a industry podcast for the pest control industry. I've been doing that now, I think 2014, in May of 2014. So 8 years now. And then I'm also the owner of Nature Pest Control here in Miami, Florida. And so their two are kind of related. Coincidentally, I started them both months apart. I thought about starting the pest control podcast way early. I was just, with a million things, and then I said, oh, let me start it. I'm going to start them both at the same time and start, because that was a transition for me in 2014. So I decided, let me start both and start a new journey on both of these, and just go for it. And both of these, everybody told me it couldn't be done because nobody would ever watch. So
that's not true. I've seen your numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, they're not that impressive.
Well, I think for industry, I think it is, and I think I think we're talking off camera a little bit about just home service industries.
Yeah.
I think they can learn a lot from what you're doing that they're not doing to grow their business. The podcast, what you do on social media, the way you network and engage with people is just awesome. So
thank you.
I usually like to start the interview asking just some random personal type questions.
Okay.
And since I know you're Cuban and you live in Miami, I used to live in Florida myself, but on the Gulf Coast.
Okay.
I love a Cuban sandwich. It's like my favorite sandwich. So if I was to go to Miami, where is the best place to get a Cuban sandwich?
That's going to be tough because everybody claims they have the best Cuban sandwich. Nobody says we have a crappy Cuban sandwich.
Right. Yeah.
No, but I would say you can't go wrong with La Carreta.
Okay.
They've been around, since the 70s. They're a nice chain. If you want traditional Cuban food, no matter what it is, it's always spot on. It's no matter which one you go to. I think they got like 10 or 12 of them in Miami. It's La Carreta. I would definitely put my money on them.
You're not going to believe this, but I think it was not until I was in my 40s that I had my first Cuban sandwich, even though I grew up in Florida.
Right.
My friend, Lazaro, who lives locally here, started a restaurant chain himself here in the Greenville upstate area, called Tropical Grill. And it's like a lot of rice and chicken and all kinds of good stuff for you. And then there's this Cuban sandwich. And when I had it, I was like, my world just boom opened up. I was like, this is the best sandwich ever.
Right.
So
it is good. I mean, you can't go wrong. You've got 2 levels of pork. You got ham and pork, but I think we messed up. We should have added bacon to it. Then we could have just appealed to everybody.
Yeah, that's true. And granted, it's probably the least healthiest thing on his menu, and I order it a lot when I go there. But I love it. So also a Miami related question: are you a Heat, Dolphins, Marlins, or Hurricanes fan? Any of the above?
I'm gonna devastate you, brother. I'm not even a sports fan, but I mean,
wow.
I've watched a couple of Heat games. The Marlins are always disappointing.
Yep.
And the Dolphins, hey, they're there. But I can't remember the last time they won a championship. I think I was in Miami at that time, but I've never been a sports fan. I don't do well as a spectator. My ADD kicks in, unless something's getting shot at, or blown up. I have the attention span of a gnat. So very tough for me to sit. But I've gone to one baseball game in my life. I went to go see the Indians, and what was it? The Reds.
Okay.
Play both Ohio teams, Cincinnati and I forget what the other one was.
Cleveland.
The Indians and Cleveland. Yeah. And I went to go see a preseason game when I used to live in Ohio. And I've been to one Heat game. Never been to a Dolphins game. So yeah, it's just not my thing. I'm usually just competitive in other areas.
Nice. I am a casual sports fan. It's hard for me to sit through any type of sports for a long time, but I live in the upstate. I used to be a Florida State Seminoles fan because when I grew up in Florida, I follow college football more than pretty much anything. Now I'm a big Clemson fan, so we watched the game last night. But as far as other sports like Sunday NFL, I could care less.
Right.
You know? But yeah, awesome. Now I'm hoping you have a good answer for this one.
Okay.
Weirdest pest problem your company has been called out for?
Oh man, the weirdest ones are the ones that we can't really solve because there's nothing there. I've been on a couple of there is a technical term in the industry known as delusional parasitosis, where people believe they're getting bitten by something. Yet there's no signs, so wow. So we've been out to those cases where, okay, it might be bed bugs, it might be bird mite, usually we'll find the bug. I mean, if I put a monitor out and I come back in a week, and I put the traps and I do the things that I have to do to try to find it, I'll see something, and I'll take my, a magnifying glass and I'll go through that bed with a fine tooth comb, inch by inch until I find something. Those are the weird ones where there's nothing actually there. It's really in their head. It's sometimes it's older people with skin disorder, like they had diabetes and they feel their skin crinkling at night because the body's relaxing, or somebody who got, like, I had one gentleman who had gone to a beach and he got bit so badly by no-see-ums that he came back just still thinking he had them, and he would go to the dermatologist and they couldn't find it. I mean, we're not doctors, so we can't examine bodies. Right. But we hey, did you go to a dermatologist? Did you do this? Did you? Yes. Look, right. It's crawling up my leg right now. And I'm looking and I'm like, I don't see it. It's not there. And then those are the weirdest ones. Those are the tough cases because you realize there's nothing you can do for them and nobody can. And they've got to either see a mental specialist to kind of deal with it. And those are the really sad ones because, or, the ones where you're dealing with bed bugs and there's lots of little children and it's been just a really bad situation. Those are the heartbreaking ones that you're trying to solve, but you can't really. It's the tough ones. Yeah.
So ghost bugs, kind of like ghost
bugs. Yeah, ghost bugs. It's just not there. And I actually did a podcast and a video on that where I showed a lot of the science and the data, and even the people who were suffering from it were appreciative of that, of the care, because it is a sensitive subject. It really is. You're dealing with somebody's mental state that they're trying to cope and you're trying to help. And no matter what you do, you can't treat for something that isn't there. And in ethics, I'm not going to prescribe you and charge you for a chemical treatment when I know there's nothing there, and just take your money when I know there's, it would probably make you feel better. But what I've learned through the years, if you do that and they're still having the mental state, then it's like you failed. You didn't solve my problem, and you're the fifth company that failed. So you're like, you have to walk away, and that's, it's heartbreaking. That's the human side of it, that, you have to walk away from those deals without being able to help them at all. Yeah. That's really sad when you can't help someone. I really want to dive into your story now, because I know a little bit about you from what I see online, but I don't know how you started and how you got to where you are now. So if you could fill us in on where you started and how you got to where you are now. Well, it started back in my mother's womb. Well, you were an entrepreneur right out the womb. Pretty much. I was entrepreneurial as a kid. I mean, I remember sitting to this day, I was like 16 years old, and we were at my aunt's house and they were talking to the kids and, what are you going to do? And I'm going to go to college and do this. And I said, I'm going to go start my own business. I'm never going to work for anybody. I never wanted to. I did it. I was miserable. I worked a 9 to 5 just to please the spouse, to bring in a steady paycheck, and I was miserable. So I was always entrepreneurial as a kid. But my break in this industry was completely by accident. I was actually a youth pastor at the time. I was full-time youth pastor at a church, and I used to be part of the production team. We used to do radio and television, and we had all that. And but it, honestly, just wasn't going to pay the bills for long. I mean, I took a sabbatical. I had burned out a bit. I had a business and I had a relationship, and that went south. And I had to come back to Florida to take care of my mother. She was ill. She was having heart issues, three arteries, 80% clogged. And I don't know how she was working or walking. Man. And so I had to come back and deal with her. I left everything behind over there in Ohio and just took a sabbatical for time being. I went to Bible college at that time. Took that time to just, rethink everything in life. And 4 years in, my brother-in-law, then he had a pest control route, and he says, man, I can't, I've never been able to make any money with this, but I started roofing. This was back during Wilma, in 2007, 2006, he started dabbling and says, I'm going to go into roofing. And he started doing roofing, and he had this route sitting. This is, but I can't take care of the route. Can you at least help? I've lost almost all my clients. Can you at least help me out? And so I don't lose the rest, just in case this roofing thing doesn't pan out. And I said, sure, I'll help you. And I started doing it on Saturdays and on the weekends and helping him out. And I said, man, this is like really cool. I really liked it. He started abandoning it more. He says, would you like to take it on? At that time, I was thinking already about quitting my job. He says, yeah, I still got plenty of customers. We're making decent money. You can do good. We'll do a 50-50 deal. I'll give you the truck, the equipment, everything. And I said, sure. And I'll do it. And man, when I went out there, I mean, I was doing it on weekends. I had no idea what was happening during the week. We only had about 35 customers left. They were all gone. Yeah. I was calling them. He says, here's the list of all the customers I used to have. Call them and see if you can win them back. And they were so pissed off, they didn't want to see me. So I said, well, I already quit my job and I got this. So it's door knocking time. And I went out and I door knocked, networked. I did whatever I had to do to make it. And soon enough, it was 3 years in, and I was, already doing a lot of changes. I revamped a lot of things in the business that weren't kosher, from a chemical. I mean, he was using 50-year-old chemicals. I started using all new stuff. And 3 years after that, I said, listen, I built it up. It was nothing. You've been making your money 50% for the last 3 years. I'm going to get my own license, start up my own business, my own brand. What do you want to do? He says, nah, you earned it. Go ahead and just keep it. And I did. And I started up. By that time, I already had built a different company because I had built a property service company. So we were doing landscaping, pest control, repairs, handyman service. I was running around sometimes with 3-4 crews, one 50 miles apart, and I was doing 2 jobs and going insane. And wow. I did that for 7 years, but trying to build up a property service company. And then I started but unless people don't know Miami is not Florida, and Miami is not America. For those of you who don't know, it's 65% Hispanic, very, very high end on hotel and restaurant. So it's the entertainment, and it's mostly off undocumented workers. I mean, that's the influx that we have here. So all that went south in 2007. I started my company in 2009, the pest control business and the other stuff that I was already doing together. And the market took a dump. We know what happened. So that was tough. And what I found is you learn, and back now to COVID and this, I told my people and everybody, I said, guys, remember 2009? We started up in 2009. It couldn't be done. Bad idea. Yet we made it. So here I am 15 years later, still talking about this. So going, we went ahead and I took over it. I started up the company. And then in 2007, 2014, all these home service businesses, little, like that, were just unprofitable. None of the sections were really profitable anymore. We were working on 30% margins. I don't want to do anything less than a 50% margin. So it was at 30% margin. I was running around 3-4 crews, working 14-hour days. And I'm like, dang, I didn't even make more money this year than I made last year. The only thing that was really profitable was our pest control division.
Mm.
And I said, I want to do we've been doing, by the way, the eco-friendly, natural, organic space. I just never told anybody what we were doing. I kept that hush, because if I told my clients we're going to do organic and natural and this and that, they would have fired me. They would have said, that's junk. Nobody wants it. Even in 2007, when I had started my company, I was already meeting with all the industry experts, all the PhDs in the industry, all the manufacturers that made organic products. He says, Frank, it can't be done. You don't understand. These products are only available for agriculture. You can't use them in residential. They're not labeled. We're not going to. Nobody wants it. I'm like, no, there has to be a way, you know. And I was dabbling and experimenting. For 7 years, I was experimenting. While I was running all these businesses, we were let's push it. So any new line that came out, started coming out, I was buying it. I was the only one buying it. I mean, even my suppliers didn't carry it. I had to special order everything because they didn't carry it. And I started doing it. And so I was doing market analysis in 2007, where all the headlines read, everybody wants organic products and wants this. But when you looked at the actual analytics, only 4% of people were actually spending the money in the stores. So the headlines were kind of the same. 50% of people want organic. Yeah, everybody wanted it, but not at 30 to 40% more.
Right.
So when I looked at all the marketing studies, I said, if I go and I do organic now, I'm like, I don't feel like being that much of a pioneer. I'm gonna, I know pioneers get burnt. So I said, no, I'm gonna just wait it out. And 2013, I was burned out. I redid the studies again. I said, let me look what the market's at. Now the market was at 12, 13%. So when you understand the diffusion of innovation and you say, okay, now I can jump into this market and I can be the first, because I was actually the second in my market. Another guy was already doing it, but his father had started the company back in the 80s. And they were just still getting into that. They hadn't grown either. So I said, no, I'm going to jump in now. I shut down everything. I lived a year off of the sale of all my equipment that I had from the construction, repairs, I sold off all of that, and I lived off, sold off the trucks, and I rebranded, and I spent the next year focused on Nature Pest and building that brand. And everybody still told me, you're going to die. Nobody's going to buy pest control, organic. The whole industry is against it. The entire industry. It's like, this is like, voodoo, literally talking, you're literally talking voodoo here. It can't be done. But what I had learned is the same way I learned to do organic lawn care and landscaping and organic, all this, I learned it from agriculture. I dove deep into agriculture, and I understood agriculture and how to take the principles and apply it to landscapes, because they're relatives, they're plants. Then I said, how do I do it in the home? And the only way to do it in the home was to do the same service that you did in organic facilities, audited facilities, hospitals, very sensitive facilities. We're talking about biolabs. And how do you do that? Here's the problem. Nobody could do it in homes because the cost is so high that only the top 1% can afford it. Basically, the people that have the money that says, yeah, I want it. I do yoga. I live this lifestyle. I drive a Bentley and I don't care. That's my clientele. I mean, I just closed on a property on Star Island. Not me. I didn't buy it. I mean, on the deal, where we're doing all of their plants, and we're doing, this is $15,000 a year in pest control.
Nice.
Okay. For one house. And it's like, 5,000 square foot house on a 10,000 square foot lot. It's not huge, but it has so many plants and so many specialty plants. They can't find someone, and then on top of that, they want organic. So, for the average price in the industry right now in Miami is $49 a month. If that tells you where, what level we're at.
Yeah.
So my clientele is that exclusive clientele. It still is. And so going forward, we decided I'm going to rebrand. And I decided, I started talking to all the marketing companies, and we did the Yelp thing. And the problem was that those people on those platforms weren't looking for organic, which is our niche. I happened to read the book, Blue Ocean Strategy. Man, did that really okay, you're on the right track. How are you going to do it? I had to literally bypass the entire industry, bypass the marketing, bypass, and go direct to the consumer via YouTube. And so our number one is like, how do we do this? We showed people, here's what we did before, here's what we did after with natural. And they said it couldn't be done. So I started just cranking out content. You know, I was doing the Gary V thing before I knew who Gary V was. It's just that I didn't do it at that, you know, execute at that level of, you know, every single day. And we got to that point at one point where we were just producing every single day, hundreds and hundreds of videos a month at scale. And then SEO was my friend, because I realized the only people that were going to find me were those that were actually looking for what I was actually selling. And I didn't want to target everybody else, because when we counted our lead cost, it was $250 plus the cost of the sale. We were losing money every single time. They said, you'll make it up in volume. I said, no, we won't. I can't afford to lose this at scale. So we cut out all the advertising, and I said, I'm going to focus just on social media. Primarily at that time was YouTube and my blog. Mind you, I am the worst writer in history. You know, I write really bad, yet my stuff would rank. I could make it rank. Probably because I had a blue ocean strategy. Nobody was even going after it. I decided, great, everybody's going this way, I'm going that way. You know, and that's always been my you know, my operational mindset is I'm salmon. I just swim against the stream. I enjoy it. So so I started doing YouTube and blog. I just focused on those two things, and just getting that content, getting it out, cranking it out on all these issues with plants and stuff. And it just took off. It took about a year. It took about 2 years for us to rank #1 in Miami. That's how much work that was, you know, putting out 3 to 5 blogs a week and about, you know, 2 to 5 videos a week. I was spending about maybe 40% of my time on marketing, and then going out and making the sales from those leads. So that happened for 2 years. Then that took off, and you know, and at the same time, I'm doing the podcast for Pest Geek. You know, everybody in the industry rejected me, literally. I mean, I got more hate mail. You know, you thought I'd kill babies. It's you're a heretic. You're ruining the industry. Nobody's going to go for that natural junk, and IPM can't be done. Mind you, we've been discussing IPM. For those of you of your audience doesn't understand what IPM is, integrated pest management. This has been discussed at depth at every single major university in the country and in the world for the last 50 years. Yet everybody says it can't be done in residential homes. Why? Because nobody will pay for it. You're selling. You're down here in a bloody ocean, competing for $35 accounts, and I'm up here selling $500 initials to clients who want it. You know, I always tell people there's 3 things that I need from a client. I've been in sales for 30 years. I says they have to want the product or need it. They have to have the ability to pay for the product, but they have to be willing. And a lot of people have this, but they're not willing to pay for it. And I only care about the person that's willing. So when people were seeking me out, it says, oh my God, I've been calling. Nobody does this. I found you online. You know, it's like, finally, then I give them the price and like, oh, I didn't realize it was that expensive. But, you know, we don't care. We just care about the ones that really can afford it, because it is a lot. It was a lot of time in the home. And the greatest thing that probably did happen to us now, believe it or not, was COVID. Because it pushed us when we lost 30% of our business overnight because nobody wanted you in the home, and you have to go in the home to solve a roach problem. You can't solve it from outside, at least not most of the time. And our roach clients and all that in Miami were mostly apartment renters, individual apartment renters, by the way, that landlords will not solve the problem because they have a guy coming in for $5 a unit spraying their floors. And we're like, listen, it's this much to solve that problem. They're like, we can't afford it. We're both out of work. Costs were rising. Gas went through the roof. I mean, how do you make it? You know, we did try to keep as many people on as possible. One of them, his hours were cut so much, you know, that he could not afford it. He went out. He's back now with me again, making He started out with me at 17 an hour, knowing nothing. He's making well over 24 an hour now, 2 years later. So the best thing that could have happened to us was, again, 2009, because it forced me to look at our operations and say, how do we make this more affordable? Because it had to come to affordability, or else most people could not do it. And I said, I want to go mainstream. I want to compete head to head with the big guys. It's time that we're able to scale. We haven't been able to scale to this point. We're only 4 people in our business. I'm one of them. We were able to grow, but not scale. We're highly profitable because our gross margins are really good, because I've shielded against, I fought that tooth and nail for everybody. Told me, you cannot sell pest control at that price. It just can't be done. And I said, you understand that I went after the 1% that could. And I focused on that. But that was, for a lot of people, that's unthinkable, because I can't afford to say no to people. I got to say yes to everybody just to eat, because I'm starting out. I was in a position where I said, no, I'm going to hold out, lived off the sale of equipment, literally lived in a little studio apartment, for $900 a month, which for most people around the country in Carolina, $900 a month, you could still rent a house. We're talking about a 1-bedroom studio apartment. So I can scale this and basically literally start all over again from what I had built. And so it's a lot of humble pie. You got to be willing to do it. But I saw what everybody else couldn't. And now I got people all over the country telling me, hey, I listened to what you said for the last 8 years. I started doing it and it's working. I said, yeah, because I blazed a trail for you. But I'm happy, because that was my goal. And that was part of what I wanted to do. My goal that I set out 5 years ago, that I started saying, is I'm going to be America's pest control guy, because I'm going to go mainstream on this. I'm going to take what's been in the universities and in government and been held there, and make the average consumer aware of it, and make them want it when they realize that a cheap spray service isn't what they really want in their home, and why they want an eco-friendly, holistic, organic compliant service in the home, where nothing gets contaminated. It gets treated as if it was a hospital surgical room every single time, by highly trained people. It takes me about a year to train one guy, when the average guy gets 40 hours of training in the industry. And take this mainstream and make it popular with the mainstream audience. The people who are now could not afford my pricing because of COVID, they can. I refocused on route density and getting everybody as close together, and that duplication that we were able to, get 2 different routes and make it more streamlined. So that's, you learn a lot more in really bad times than you learn in good times. When everybody's paying your price and you're closing, and it's like, nobody's saying no to me, I just keep raising my price. That's my strategy, until I get to that, 80% that tells me no. And then, okay, what's the sweet spot? And now I said, no, let's just compete head to head with everybody. We've got the staff now. It's also the responsibility that's on your shoulders when you have employees, and you need to feed them. And if you lose them, what are you going to do? It's going to take you 6 months. I don't have a HR recruiting department, and nobody wants to HR recruit for 35 to 40,000 a year employees. They all want the $100,000 coder. That's the industry. I mean, you go into nobody's going to recruit for you. You're on your own. This is the problem that the small guy has, is that he doesn't have systems in place to hire, onboard, train, retrain. And I spent 2 years on that. During COVID, before that, 2 years before, I spent it on learning how to recruit, how to do the Indeed thing, and how to get people to apply, and then how to process them through, have a training system and all that. And most of these guys that I'm talking to, still after 10 years, they don't have a training system. So that's why I did a training system for pest control people, because I saw the huge need that nobody wanted to do it. Now there's 20 podcasts, and they're all focused on mergers and acquisitions and, buyouts and all this. I'm still focused on training. I still, with the emphasis on, hey, let me help you recruit. Let me help you get your first guy, because that's your biggest hurdle. I tell people, it's like having a kidney stone every single day when you have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, that's the way it feels when you say, I can't hire, I can't find anyone to hire. I said, that's because you haven't developed systems. You're good at the technical stuff, and you thought that was going to get you, and it gets you to here, it gets you to a full route. And then what? Then you're full because you're handling all the calls, you're doing all the marketing, you're doing all the sales, you're doing all the technical stuff, and you don't have time now, an extra 20 hours a week, to focus on recruiting and training and onboarding. So you're like, I'm stuck like Chuck, I can't move. And that's the hardest part. So that's what we've been focused on now, is helping people through that hurdle of hiring. And what do you do? And the reality of it, because, it's a lot of it in the industry, and especially with my people, they're all blue collar. They ain't buying all that marketing. That's great. Yeah. You guys talk about all this stuff, but that's for big companies. Not for me. I'm a solo guy. I can't buy any of that. So how do you develop a talent acquisition system in your little micro business? By all intents and purposes, we're a micro business. We're not even a small business. We're not a mid-sized business. We're micro. We're under 10 employees. We don't make it on radars.
Wow.
So
there's so much in everything that you just said, and I was coming up with questions to ask you based on some of the things that you said, but I did not want to stop you because you were on a roll.
Thank you.
So much value, and I was like, he's just dropping gold nuggets. So I'm not going to pause him for a second here.
Right. With my ADD, that would have been a derailment. I mean, what did I say? Where was I? Yeah.
I think back to what you were saying about the blue ocean strategy, about finding there's things about consistency in there, about finding your niche. There's just so that, and I have a question based on just basically what you just said, because it seems timely right now. Home service businesses are having a very hard time hiring at the moment. And I think a lot of things that you alluded to is not having the systems in place and the onboarding to hire better, right?
Well, to even hire at all. And let's look at what if you look at any blog about hiring, you Google, how do I hire in bad times or whatever, and hiring in this time. I said, what people are looking for is what every guru tells you is, well, they're looking for a culture. Well, when you're one guy, you are the culture. If they either meet you and they like you and they like hanging around with you, or they don't. If you are a person who just doesn't like people, because most technical people are introverted, and it makes it very hard. And if people don't really like you, what culture are they buying into? What dream? How good of a salesman are you? Most people who are solopreneurs are terrible salespeople. They're terrible marketers. They made it because they can get on referrals, and they can only handle so much business a day. If I actually opened up the floodgates, you would be afraid you would not be able to handle it, because you're not very good at, your 80% closing is because you get a lot of referral business and you're great at that. So you build your business to the average home service business. Let's say it's 150,000 in America right now a year, and you're making 65 to 75,000. How much do you have left over for an actual employee? With the cost of fuel, you have nothing.
Right.
So unless you were able to save 3 to 6 months and then spend it all in places, but I'm going to hire him and I'm going to train him and he's going to quit, because that's what the last 3 guys did. What do I do now? I said, that's the game. And what you got to get past the paradigm shift in your head, that understand that that's the game. See, I don't do sports, but I understand this game. And in my mind, it's a game. And if I can't hear the rules to the game, and here's the reality of who you're playing against. You're playing against everybody else in the industry that has a job ad for a $16 an hour employee, which is what you can afford to pay. So what are you offering? Well, I looked and it says, I'm a Zig Ziglar student. I was listening to Zig Ziglar tapes when I was 18 years old in my car. Okay, because I was in sales. I've been in sales my whole life. I think since I was born. I talked the doctor into something, I'm sure of it. But you know, Zig Ziglar would say, you give enough people of what they want in the world and you will have what you want. The problem is that you're listening to people. There is no such thing as a podcast that's dedicated to the micro business of a 1 to 2 man show, other than what was his name that he coined the phrase solopreneur, Ramsey. Dave Ramsey coined he coined the phrase solopreneur. Well, back when I was a kid, that was you're self-employed or you're a freelancer. That means you were broke and you had no money. So now it's cool, but let's say you don't have any money now, and all of a sudden you got to hire this person. Your fear of, if I do hire him, how am I going to afford him when I don't have the extra money for extra marketing and extra sales? And then how do I go out and become a closer? Because I'm not a closer. I got to be a closer. My biggest fear, to be honest with you, is going out and selling, because I know that if I go out and I go on a war path of selling, I will close more business than I can physically handle, and I didn't have the people. That's also the reality of what we do. So it's culture, then it's, flexibility and a flexible schedule. Well, when you're in a service business, I can't offer a flexible schedule because I work from 7 to 7. I said, I got news for you. Your employees aren't you. They don't care. This is your business. You work 7 to 7 because it's your business. They want to go to their kid's ball game at 4:00 in the afternoon. They want weekends off. They want to work 30 something hours a week. They don't want to work 50 hours a week. Yeah, but I need them to work 7 days. I said, no, you've told yourself that's what you need. And therefore you've canceled everybody that's available to work for you. So one of my great techs, which is one of the ones that have been with me the longest, he's been with me for 3 years now, college student. When he's off in the summer, he works every single day. When he's off, then he works 4 days, but then he tells me, I need to make more money. I'll work Saturdays too. So he's on the 3 days that he works, so he puts in 10-hour days. Can you create a system that allows you to hire a guy for 1 or 2 days a week? Nobody wants to work 2 days a week. Who says? Just because you don't want to do it doesn't mean there are other people out there that don't want to do it. Or why do you think you had such trouble hiring? It wasn't because you had trouble hiring because people didn't want to work. Is that people were doing Uber and Lyft and Instacart. Why? Because it gave them flexibility to work, not being in office while everybody got laid off and they felt it. They said, screw that. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And how do you think these guys grew? They grew off of all those people that didn't need a 40-hour job. The mom that says, I got to be home with my kids, but my husband comes home in the afternoon and I go to do Instacart for 4 to 5 hours. Why can't you hire a technical person to work evenings? You know how many people I hired? All of my new techs that I ever hired, I hired them to work after they got out of their job. I said, let me see how hungry they are to really want to move and see if they're fit. So what did I do? I hired them and says, what time you get out of work? He says, no, I get out at 3. I said, are you willing to work from like 5 to 8 or 4 to 8? He says, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I said, good, let's do it. And I would go out with him at night and teach him how to do this business. That demanded a lot more from me, but I'm an owner. Yeah, but I'm not willing to put in those extra hours. You're stuck like Chuck. You got to look at all the things you're not willing to do and say, let me change my mindset to what's practical and what's reality, and stop with the pie in the sky of what I'm reading from all the professionals, because I'm telling you, I'm a corporate guy who used to work for a Fortune 500 company who did 13 million in sales on my own in 23 states, and none of this stuff applies to micro business. None of the podcasts you hear, none of the books, none of it really applies to micro business. It's businesses that are scaling, 10 or more employees that are already scaling and growing is not the same thing. And this is the challenge. So what I tell people is, look, Find a person that has 2 jobs. He's working part-time here and he's willing to work part-time here with you. 2 days a week. That's what I did. So my other guy that I just hired back, I said, listen, I don't have much work, but if you come on board, he decided to quit the job he left because they cut his hours too during COVID. Everybody felt it. And he went out and started doing Uber. I said, but look at the miles you're putting on your car. You're going to get hit with a major tax problem. These are the things people don't understand when they're doing these, that you're a 1099 employee and you better have $3,000 to $4,000 in expenses to write off, or you're going to be, with a tax liability. So I said, come back to work with me. I'll pay you half of what you're making now on Uber in 2 days. And now he's working with me 3 and now 4 days a week. And this has only been a month because I can go out and sell. I'll lower the prices, which is other people don't do. It says, oh, I'm not going to lower my prices. Is you got to understand, if you're going to be in a competitive market, you do have to play the game if you want to play in the mainstream. And if I want to get more business really quick to pay that guy, then I need to go out and lower my prices to compete with the top 10 national brands and do what I said, because here's what I believe, Doug. I believe I have the greatest service in Miami, the greatest product. And this is why I am screaming it from every rooftop. I am on every social media channel. I'm telling everybody about it because I do believe that wholeheartedly, because I know what my competition offers. Nobody has what I have. But if I can't put it in the hands of people to use it, then I can't scale. And in order for me to scale now, which is where I'm at in my point, that I've grown, but I haven't scaled, then I need to say, I'm going to drop my prices to meet everybody else's price. I'm not going under. I'm not lowballing. I'm not becoming a bottom feeder. I am simply saying, here's what it takes to compete. I know the game, but I wasn't willing to do it before because I didn't have to. I'm comfortable. I'm fine. But I realized now I got to feed these people. I got to grow. So now I drop my prices and I'm going head to head with everybody. So now when you call me, it says, why would you want a cheap spray service for that price when I can give you this for the same price? There's the value. Now I just created massive value.
Yep.
Because this was being sold at $490, $459, $495 right before COVID. You're getting it for $159. Massive value. It's the same as how do you create a loss leader sometimes. Duct cleaning. Nobody makes money at $69 duct cleaning.
Right.
But it brings that customer in and says, oh, by the way, your coils are dirty. You might want to do it. Hey, by the way, this system is old. It's 14 years old. You might want to look at replacing it. But you got to be a salesperson in a sales mentality, not a technical person saying, oh, they just called me in for the cleaning. I'm not going to upsell them on anything because I don't want to upset them. Why? Because I don't like to be upsold. And that is the mentality of most solo operators and people that I don't like this, therefore nobody else likes it. I don't like when they come knocking on my door, therefore I don't do door knocking. I don't like ads, therefore I don't do advertising. I don't like Facebook, therefore I don't do Facebook. I said, I could care less what I like. I care what they like. And if they like text, I text with them. If they like email, I email. I don't do email. I don't do text. I want face-to-face. I said, your clients are mostly now millennials. They don't want face-to-face. They want text. Right. So why don't you do what they like? Give them what they want in the platform they want it on. If it's text, it's text. If it's video, it's video. If it's audio, it's audio. When I started doing the podcast, just that I didn't have to do video. It was a lot more work until I could hire somebody. I got a guy that worked for me part-time for 16 to 20 hours a week, producing everything for me. I don't have to produce it. How do I get out of the hats? Just keep hiring part-time people to get out of the little hats. Like I just hired an SEO company again. Last year during COVID, I lost 10 grand in an SEO company. Ooh. That didn't produce, and they actually tanked my site. They tanked my SEO where for 30 days, I didn't get a single call. I lost over $30,000 in that transaction. I said, I hired you guys to do it and I do it better than you do because I've been doing it. I understand SEO. I understand that I'm a former programmer. Originally I started as an IT person and studied programming. And then I moved into business and then moved into sales because I didn't like coding. But I'm a troubleshooter and I understand technology. So therefore, I'm in a terrible place because it's like living inside my head. It's like living with a schizophrenic. Because you got the marketing guy inside you, you got the management guy inside you, got the sales guy inside you, you got the technical guy inside, and they're all jockeying for position, saying, "No, we need to do it this way because this is better." And I'm like, "Shut up."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it feels sometimes. So the idea is, if you want to hire, what can you realistically afford? And let's talk about benefits. And I said, I can't do 401k. I can't do health insurance. You know what? The funny part is none of my guys want it. Why am I going to try to get into something that my people don't want right now? Here's where I am. When I scale to 9 to 10 employees, that's a different conversation. Right now, what do you want? I want the salary. Okay, let me see how I can get you the biggest salary that I can get you so I can keep you happy. So they went from $17 to $20 to $24, all in less than a year. Nice. Why? Because I went ahead and I tightened up my belt again, and I said, I'll take less. And I live a frugal, I live like, by all intents and purposes, I'm a minimalist. I don't need a whole lot. I don't drive fancy cars. I don't have expensive habits other than a cigar once a week on a Saturday when I record my podcast with a cigar in my mouth, $6, $8 cigars. I don't have like this. So I said, this is what's important to then. If a guy quits, it's going to be 6 months to a year. I got to go jump back into a truck, run that route. It's much cheaper for me to make this happen for them and look at what it's realistic. And then I worked out a deal with them. I said, I'm not going to pay you by the hour. I'm going to pay you production. So now I pay you a percentage of the business, but at a highest percentage in the industry in Miami, because right now everybody's paying between 12 and 18%. I said, I'm going to go to 25. Everybody said, that's crazy. Why are you doing that? I said, because I know that I just gave them golden handcuffs. They're not going to leave. Where are they going to go for that kind of money? Oh, I gave them flexibility. You want flexibility? No problem. You schedule your route around you. But at the end of the month, it all has to be done. I don't care when you do it. I just care that it gets done. The moment you tell me you can't handle no more, either of you, I said, no problem. I started another route. But now I have the sales ability where I can go out and sell. I know I can fill them. One guy's already full. He said, I can't take anymore. He literally called me and I said, can you increase the schedule hours on my schedule? Because he already had it between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. Wow. And I says, I need more space because I can't do it. But he's willing to put in the hours. So I said, here it is. Now you have, to put twice as much in there. And all I do now is manage and sales and a little bit of marketing. I worked yesterday on my marketing. I went in and I was doing a Local Falcon. For those of you who don't know, it's a great app to figure out where I got it right here on my screen, where you're ranking. And it's called Local Falcon. I was doing my SpyFu, looking at all my competition on SEO. I spent all day doing that because I had to get back in. I haven't done any real SEO in 2 years, other than the content I'm putting out, but actual work on SEO, I haven't done it. So I was doing that. I went ahead and fixed on 20 something local pages that we had little minor details. And I'm going to be writing a couple of pages now for some new markets we want to get into. And I'm the worst writer in the world. So I have to give it to my friend Eric and said, bro, do me a favor, proofread this. And half of it, the punctuation, I guarantee you it's in the wrong place. So he'll do that and get it out there. But yeah, man, it's about being realistic. I says, what do they want? I can't afford all these benefits that everybody says, but I gave them the two things that they appreciated most was the salary and the flexibility. So now he goes to college and he takes 2 days off a week. He doesn't have to tell me when he's off. I don't care when he's off. Says, well, how do you keep track of them? It says the schedule is there. The work is getting done. The complaints aren't coming in that he didn't show up. All the vehicles are GPSed. I know where they at. I know where they've been. These guys are honest. I trust them. I know they're not going to screw me because they've been working with me for years now.
Mm-hmm.
They earned that trust. They've earned that respect. Let me give it to them so that they're not going to think about going anywhere else.
Yeah.
And
Retention.
now I got 2 things out of the 5, which is flexibility in the schedule and top pay. Why? Because in Miami, rents have gone through the roof. I don't know if you followed it, but rents have more than doubled in a year. What used to be $1,300 a month is now $2,400 a month for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment. You need $80,000 a year to pay for that rent just to live, have gas, and you have the average income in Miami still at $46,000 a year. So I'm competitive. How do I compete? Mm-hmm. This is the arena I compete in. It says I'm going to compete to hire that one guy that has the character I want, because I hire for character. I hire I don't hire people that I have to manage. I hire managers in the making, because I've been a manager trainer. I've been a manager. I've hired many people before in my other businesses and other work. It says I'm hiring for character. I'm hiring it for the people that have the ability to learn what I need them to learn to manage. So they have to manage this route if it was their own. They got to manage the chemical. They got to manage the time. Now, when I pay them percentage, they're no longer saying, dang, I'm not going to drive 45 minutes to that client, when I can call that client, switch them to Thursday when I'm going to be in that area, because now that trip is going to cost me. I don't make no money. I just made them responsible for taking ownership of everything on that vehicle. And that's really the reality of what I had to do. So it's not that I'm brilliant. It's that I'm saying, geez, what is it? What can I, let's sit down and negotiate there. You want this? You want that? No, this is what I want. Okay. Everything else is off the table. I'm giving you the 2 things you want. You're going to be happy with that. Yep. All right.
Nice. I think the questions that I was going to ask you, you've answered so well already. How do you separate yourself, like, as a first-class service compared to other businesses? I think you answered that very well about how you treat your employees, about just the way that you do things in general. So that is awesome. There is one more question that I want to ask you.
Okay.
And it's because I know so many people that have immigrated to the United States that have done very well, and I think there's a different mentality. So you immigrated from Cuba, is that correct?
Yeah, I immigrated from Cuba.
Wow. So based on talks with other entrepreneurs that have been immigrants and come to the United States, I think they see the opportunity much better than someone that is naturally born here, that the country provides, right? That's there. So can you speak to that, kind of like, is there a different mentality when you come to the United States and see the opportunity versus maybe, I know you probably can't speak to someone that was naturally born here, but my thought is that people that are naturally born here, it kind of gets lost on them, that the amount of opportunity we have.
It comes, familiarity breeds content. You're familiar with your surroundings. You know what you know because this was your experience. And you think that experience that you're having as a 20-something-year-old right now, a 30-something-year-old, that is the norm, and you can't see the opportunities when the opportunities are there, because it's hard to keep somebody hungry that's constantly being fed. Mm-hmm. So if you're living at home with mom and dad, and mom didn't tell you got to throw out the garbage every day, and dad didn't tell you have to learn to mow the lawn, and they said, nope, you're just going to study and be good kids and enjoy your life, unlike his parents did with him, and this is why he's successful today. I think we spoiled our kids rotten. I think I got a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. He has to come every day, look at the garbage. The backyard has to be blown out every day, from the leaves and everything. He's got to do work when he comes. He's got to do his homework. And I think the mentality from my parents, my mom, because my mom always instilled in me, I didn't bring you to this country. We didn't come to this country. We didn't sacrifice for you to do nothing. And I think that guilt trip, which is kind of healthy, it can become unhealthy because then you get unrealistic. You got to be a doctor. You got to be a lawyer. You got to go to this college. You got to do this. And it's never good enough. that was never my mom. My mom was, I just want you to be successful and do something, and anything that I wanted. So if I wanted, I was studying electronics at the age of 10 because I took a correspondence course because I wanted to study electronics. I learned coding by myself. She bought me my first computer. She was always there to encourage me in something that would help me forward. Never had toys. I don't know what it's like to own a bike. I bought my first bike when I was 40 something years old. I never had a bike. I built a bike from parts I found on the street. Most people don't know this. 5 years after we get here from Cuba, my father has an aneurysm and he dies. I'm at the age of 5. He dies. So she becomes a single mom. I don't have a dad. At the age of 10, I get leukemia.
Oh, man.
Till 18, I could literally do nothing. My life was hospital and home because I lost my remission 3 times. In the 80s, every chemotherapy was experimental, especially on child cancers. They were all experimental. So this was like for 10 years. I'm lucky to be here talking to you. So it goes back to that sense of I went to college just to please my mom. I didn't know what I wanted to study, but I know I like computers. I like tinkering with stuff. And then I went into business school, switched my major, did better there. But I think that's the mentality, is that you see there's no opportunity. There's no opportunity because you don't really have to go and struggle for it. It's so I'm going to go and get a degree in what? I don't know. I'm dealing with so many 20-something-years. As a former youth minister, I get a lot of insight, and I still deal and I do a lot of youth ministry where I get a lot of insight into how these kids think because I spend so much time with them. So that is a comes down to sometimes the expectations are in the wrong place. You're wanting your kid to be successful, not because you encourage him to be successful, but because it makes you look good, because Janet's dad, is his son, they graduated from college and they're already starting their careers and you haven't done anything. Mm-hmm. It's not the right motivation. I think work ethic and the lack of work ethic that has been instilled in kids who grew up with everything is the problem.
Yeah.
And if we got a generation that's messed up, there has to be a parent somewhere that's messed up. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't just put the blame on the kids, because 2 of my kids are 2 of the ones that work for me are under 35. They're crushing. Sure. Yeah. So it's not every kid. I just go out there and I see the kids. Again, I say kid, 25-year-old, because I'm 50. Everybody's a kid to me. But I was at Starbucks just the other day, and I saw this young girl. She was early 20s. She couldn't be older than 24. And she was hustling behind that counter. There was only 3 people. The one drive-through, and she was cleaning and taking orders. And, hey, are you okay? And I'm sorry your order is taking so long. And she's all over it. And then instead of calling the drinks out, okay, and calling people's name, no, she grabbed my cup and brought it to the table where I was sitting and said, "Here, Frank, sorry this took so long." That's the kid I want working for me.
Yeah.
Because I know that I can take her from 14, 15, 16 an hour and get them to $20, $24 an hour very quickly within less than a year. And they're happy as heck because they want to go to college. They want to do a thing, but it requires a lot of flexibility. So I think it has to be that mindset from people that you got to be hungry. Mm-hmm. If you're not hungry, there is no hope for you. Nothing can motivate the unmotivated.
Comfort is the enemy of success.
It is. And complacency. People talk about, I talk all the time. I'm content, man. I'm genuinely content and I'm happy where I'm at. Financially, physically, I need to improve. I need to do a little bit more working out. I got to go back to that. But I'm never complacent, and people confuse being content with being complacent. That if you're content, you don't want more. I said, no, I want more. It's just that doesn't make me unhappy because I don't have it. Most people are unhappy because they don't have the things they wanted, and therefore it's self-dooming talk. I'll never have it. I'll never do it. Everybody told me I would never be good, this, that, that, and all of the stuff that's in their head. Instead of saying, what am I going to be happy doing? And the problem is you don't know. At 24, 25, I'm happier now at 50 doing what I do than when I was going to be the greatest programmer in the world at 24.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know crap. You know,
I think there's a difference between gratitude and complacency as well. You could be grateful for where you are and still not be complacent.
No, I'm not complacent at all. I still want to grow this, but to me, it's a game. I just want to play. I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I don't have anyone to prove anything to. I don't have to make anyone happy except me. Reality, you know. So it just puts me in a different place when I don't, you know, and I believe me, the bills are tight. You still got to manage that budget. You know, there are months where like crap, we're like, hey, it's going to be tight, guys. Let's, you know, get these sales in. Let's get this in. But it's not like, oh, I'm just in a bad place mentally where it's, you know, it just worries me all the time. That's the difference.
Well, Frank, it's been marvelous having you. I do have to hop on another call.
Thank you, brother.
It has been amazing. And until next time, entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.